I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it.
Jake has had double jaw surgery, 4 plates, 8 screws in his face, and everybody is just kind of breezing past that like it's no big deal. But I'm looking further into this because that's no easy surgery, and I'm starting to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end of Jake Paul's boxing career?
As his brother, I was just shocked. I'm in the hospital with the guy, and he's like, yo, can you make this TikTok? Can you film this for me? He's like laughing and having a good time.
The agenda against Anthony Joshua, because it feels to me like that fight, I before the fight, I was refusing to accept the principle that this fight could be scripted.
Boxing world has erupted with outrage, with some voices even claiming Anthony Joshua should be arrested for the damage inflicted on Jake Paul in the ring. Critics pointed to the severity of Jake's injuries, including multiple jaw fractures that required surgery and metal screws. Experts argued the matchup itself was reckless, saying Joshua's power size and aggression crossed the line of what should be considered safe competition. Fans and professionals alike were left stunned by the level of physical damage, reigniting serious debates about fighter safety, regulation, and responsible matchmaking in major crossover bouts.
Away from the power, you could call it running, and you'll be right. You can also say it's smart for a guy of Jake's size and understanding that AJ is a fucking monster. It's also smart to fight that way. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It was not.
Brian Campbell and Shaka Majoui offered a detailed breakdown of Jake Paul's fight against Anthony Joshua, examining both the tactical approach and the physical punishment Paul endured. They noted that Joshua's power was the clear difference maker, delivering blows that ultimately led to Jake needing jaw surgery. To survive, Paul relied heavily on movement, footwork, and constant circling, avoiding prolonged exchanges and staying off the ropes whenever possible. While this strategy lacked offensive intent, it allowed Paul to last longer than many expected. Against such a dominant heavyweight, Campbell and Majui emphasized that Jake's defensive awareness and stamina management helped limit further damage, but Joshua's strength still left visible and lasting injuries. Their analysis highlighted both the value of defensive planning and the dangers that arise when fighters enter clearly mismatched contests.
This be the end for him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring.
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there. There's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul.
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping reacted strongly to Jake Paul's crushing loss to Anthony Joshua, labeling the performance a textbook masterclass in elite boxing. Bisping stressed how completely outmatched Paul appeared, pointing to the precision, timing, and sheer force behind Joshua's punches. AJ's combinations and uppercuts repeatedly trapped Paul, leaving him with little room to escape and exposing clear defensive flaws. According to Bisping, The broken jaw and sustained punishment were inevitable results of facing a larger, stronger, and far more experienced opponent than Jake had ever encountered. He noted that promotional confidence and bravado could not compensate for the technical and physical gap at this level. While Paul showed durability by lasting several rounds, Bisping concluded the fight served as a harsh lesson about the difference between elite professionals and crossover boxers.
Humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Following the blockbuster bout between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, reports revealed that both fighters earn approximately $92 million each, making it one of the highest-paying boxing events ever streamed globally on Netflix. However, Joshua's earnings were significantly reduced due to taxation. As a UK resident competing in the United States, he is subject to US federal taxes as well as UK international tax obligations, potentially stripping away nearly $66 million of his purse. This drastically lowered his actual take-home pay compared to the headline figure. Jake Paul, on the other hand, did not face the same tax burden as a US-based fighter, allowing him to retain a much larger portion of his earnings despite losing the fight. The situation underscores how international tax laws can dramatically reshape boxing payouts, and reminds fans that reported purses rarely reflect what fighters truly walk away with.
Has to pay, as you see here, a whopping $43 million. $43 million of his $92 million purse. That means Anthony Joshua was left with $49 million. Right? Now, he also has to pay, I believe, 10% of that to his promoter, Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn.
Dominic Engel delivered a brutally honest assessment of Jake Paul's performance against Anthony Joshua, focusing on the strategy and overall tone of the fight. Engel explained that Jake's game plan centered on avoidance rather than engagement, using movement to prevent Joshua from trapping him and forcing exchanges. Despite absorbing a heavy right hand, Paul showed resilience by continuing without visibly panicking. However, Engel pointed out that Joshua never needed to fight at full throttle, as Jake's experience level didn't demand maximum aggression in an 8-round bout. According to Engel, Joshua controlled the fight efficiently, much like elite fighters often do against overmatched opponents. He compared the dynamic to Tyson Fury's uneven performances against lesser competition, emphasizing that fighters often operate at the level their opponent allows. When Joshua landed cleanly, Paul clearly felt the impact, but overall the bout remained controlled, highlighting both Jake's defensive instincts and Joshua's measured dominance.
A stand and fight, and AJ is not the best at closing people off, and it's hard chasing somebody down who don't want to engage, and then he tagged him every now and again. So
does it look bad on him because there was one right hook that he took was a serious shot, but obviously he didn't flinch from it. But the fact that
not really, because you'll take into consideration that you can get. There will be there'll be no way. Well, Anthony Joshua thought, if he hits me, there's a possibility he's going to hurt me. I felt a couple of shots early on in the fight. There's no way Jake Paul at the level he's at, and who he's boxed and what he's done, that he's, you know, and it's like AJ, like you say, he's got to have completely gone and be punch drunk for Jake Paul to beat him. After the last fight against Dubois, people think, well, his jaw's gone there, he can't take a shot. Of course he can take a shot. And it's weighing up the opposition, and he weighed up the opposition. And he's not going to be training like he trained for Usyk or for the big fights. He won't do that because they can't get motivated enough to do it. They'll do enough to do the rounds. What was it, an 8-rounder?
Yeah.
So, same again. So he did enough. He never looked in any trouble. It didn't look great, you know, but Tyson Fury didn't look great against Ngannou, did he? But who did he box after Ngannou?
Was it Usyk?
Exactly. Yeah. But you would have never thought, looking at the performance against Ngannou with Tyson, you would never have thought that he put in the performance he did against Usyk.
So you think it's more of a case of you kind of, no matter how good you are and how much you train, if the opposition isn't great, you sometimes
you're going to box at the level of the opponent because the opponent makes you fight at that level.
That's quite a fair.
So, but when AJ did do what he got to and manages to